and running. Let's see. Let's see. Looks like we're good there. Let's refresh here. Jeez, that was a loud car. Oh, this is going to drive me nuts. Hello? Okay. YouTube is up. Fantastic. How are my levels looking? Levels look okay. Good. On, off, on. I gotta turn that up. All right. Let's go around the room. Let's check this angle here. Which... it's okay. That'll do. That'll do. Twitch is up and running. Facebook, let's see if Facebook's going. Yup. Awesome. We are live everywhere, it appears. Good news. Where am I at? What am I doing? Let's see, episode 61 is today, yeah? Okay. I am recording. I am streaming. Got cameras on. Audio is in check. Looking good there. Got that. Got these up here. Let's check this. Okay, that looks good. Excuse me. Okay, I think we can get started now. Right? Okay. Hello and welcome to episode number 61 of the Hafey Digital Podcast, a show for creators, makers, and doers. My goal is to help you make to the max. My name is Ryan, and in this episode, I'm going to show you some portrait photography hacks for when you're maybe just not as prepared as you should be. Let's talk about it. Okay, there we go. So that was weird. My intro, I did not hear. Normally I would hear it. And I'm not sure why that is, but whatever. We're here now. It looked like in the levels. Oh no, am I not? Okay, good. Audio's coming through. Good. We moved some things around today, which we'll talk about here in a second. I just need to adjust some things. There we go. Fantastic. Thank you for being here if you are here. Hey, if you're new here, I basically am into everything related to content creation, photo, video, some audio stuff, FPV occasionally, podcasting, live streaming as I'm doing now. So if any of that stuff interests you, it would be awesome if you would hit that subscribe button wherever you have to be watching or listening. And also follow me on social media at Ryan Hafey on Instagram and Twitter. And that's where I usually hang out once this is all said and done. So, a couple things right now. Number one, I hear some audio feedback in my headphones. I hope it's not coming through on YouTube. Long story short is I moved some things around to where... Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. I think I'm supposed to turn that on too. Yeah. I moved some things around. So I have a new power bank back here in this back corner. And that power bank, the reason I got it was because I wanted to have two options. So I used to have this little power strip back there that had a few plugs and a few USB ports, and with one button so you could turn it off and on. And if I pressed that button, it would turn on my light source, it would turn on all of my cameras or power all of my cameras, and then when I was done, I just press the button and turn it off. But I find that there are occasions where I only want this light to be on. If I'm just maybe doing some work here, I need some extra light. So I got this power bank that's a little bit bigger, and it's got two buttons on the top, so I can assign this light to one of those buttons. Sorry, my dog is on the floor, and he's 110 pounds, and he takes up a lot of space. So I have this thing, I assigned the light to one of the buttons, and then all the cameras to the rest of the buttons. But I think in doing that, I've introduced some additional electrical interference. I tried to move the power bank a little bit farther away from the Rodecaster here because I think that's what's causing it. I hope it's not coming through in the audio. So if anybody out there is listening or watching, excuse me, let me know if you can kind of hear like the sort of electrical noise that I'm hearing. What else? Oh, and also, I'm very happy to report I don't have my GoPro with me, so I can't like show it from that angle. But I had this extra field monitor. I might have touched on this last week too, but I had this extra field monitor that I've had for a while. It's a 7-inch Neewer field monitor, and it's a 1080p monitor, small. But the issue that I have when I do these podcasts and also when I do things like Zoom calls is, I would put the Zoom call here, and if I wanted to see people, I would have to look in this direction. So I'd be talking here to this camera, but looking here and talking to people, and it was just I always felt a little disconnected. So I had this Neewer field monitor. The only problem is it's got an HDMI input, and I already used my HDMI, the single HDMI output I had on my PC for this monitor that's out of frame here. So I just got a DisplayPort to HDMI adapter, and I put the Neewer field monitor on top of my camera here. So now below my camera, where I'm pointing right now, I have a reference monitor which just shows me my framing coming directly out of camera, and then right above is basically a third computer monitor. So I have moved OBS into there. And by the way, let's see. No drop frames. Heck yeah. I did a couple speed tests, and upload speeds were looking good. So hopefully this is all coming through nice and neat. So I have a monitor up top there that I can use as a third monitor. In this case, I can put OBS there, which frees up some real estate on this off-camera monitor here, which was always another kind of an issue for me because it was always cluttered. There wasn't a ton of room to work with on this small monitor because this is just kind of like a 1080p monitor that when I'm editing, I would put some windows on and stuff like that. But I like this setup better. And if I'm on a Zoom call, I can look up here at this monitor here, and I don't feel as though I'm as disconnected. I feel like people can actually, or would think that I'm looking in their general direction. So that's cool. I'm happy about that. I literally just got back this morning from Los Angeles. I was since Wednesday in Los Angeles for another fight week. We had Caleb Plant versus Caleb Truax, Battle of the Calebs. Caleb Plant being the IBF super middleweight world champion and defending his title against former champion Caleb Truax. By the way, drinking some coffee. It's nice to finally actually drink some decent coffee because that hotel coffee just wasn't cutting it all week. I got in on Wednesday, and Thursday was a press conference. Friday is weigh-in. Saturday was fight night. This is the second bubble I've been in. The first bubble was for Errol Spence Jr. versus Danny Garcia back on December 5th. That was actually at AT&T Stadium, and we had fans at that one. But the bubble situation as far as getting to the hotel and kind of quarantining and being isolated to the hotel until fight night was about the same. But the fight last night was at Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. I've never been there before. It's a pretty cool vintage venue. But they set up the Fox set there. This fight was on Fox, and it was a good fight, good experience, good night. I had I'll pull up some photos here. So I could have shot ringside for this one, but with all these precautions that they put in place, they like to and especially because there's no fans, there's not a ton of people sitting ringside. They like to keep as many people off camera as possible, just so the production looks good and clean. So I decided, because we also already had a photographer ringside, I decided that I would go up to the balcony and shoot most of the night from there, because in addition to trying to shoot some of the fights, I was doing some other things as far as, just collecting digital content and things like that, and also helping with this Zoom conference situation that we were trying to do. So I was doing a lot of running back and forth, and when I had a chance to go shoot the fights, I would just go find a nice place up on this balcony, and I would shoot from there. And let me go to the screen here. I actually quite enjoyed it, and I'll show you why. So obviously, normally when you're shooting a fight, you're down ringside, you're down below, right next to the ring, and in a typical boxing situation, boxing photography situation, from that angle, your background is going to be what? It's going to be the crowd. It's going to be the audience. Or, maybe some arena lights, depending on how many people are there, whatever. But from this angle, luckily I brought my 135 millimeter Sony G Master, so that I could get nice and close. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get nearly this close. But what I kind of noticed is that from this angle, we'll go through some other shots here. Instead of the arena being the background, the canvas becomes the background in this case. And, when you have a nice black canvas and you've got fighters with lighter skin, you get some nice contrast. But I think it just gives it an entirely different feel. I think it isolates the fighters a little bit more, and just puts more of the focus on them. So I thought that was kind of cool. But this is the angle. This is the angle I was able to get from it. The shots looked nice. It was pretty crystal clear. Lighting actually wasn't bad. This is obviously not from the balcony. This is just kind of a shot, also with the 135 millimeter from ground level, and just kind of far back in the auditorium there. And this is another shot. This is from the balcony, but a little bit farther back, and still using the same 135 millimeter, but just kind of showing you a little bit more of what's going on there. Nice shot there. There we go. There we go. So it was cool, and another good thing about it is that I didn't have to worry, or I didn't have any neck pain or anything like that the next day. Because when you're shooting ringside, especially me, I'm a little bit on the taller side, about 6 feet. Usually means that I have to hunch over, and if I wanna shoot under the ropes, I gotta kind of crick my neck and look up. So even when there's nobody around, it's never that comfortable of an experience to shoot ringside. Even though it is, that doesn't mean it's not fun, but it can be a little bit painful at times. But fight week, and something that happened fight week, is actually the reason for this episode and reason for the topic of this episode, which is portrait photography hacks for the unprepared. And what I mean by that is, let's say it could be work related. Maybe you're on a work project. Maybe you're just, going to visit family. Maybe you're out with friends. Maybe you're at a client gig, and somebody at some point is like, hey, maybe you have your camera with you. Like, hey, can you grab maybe like a quick headshot, or just like a quick kind of fun portrait, whatever? That'd be really cool. Yeah, whatever. And I know that photographers out there, I'm sure I've heard this 100 times. Like, yeah, just take a picture, just snap a photo. It's all good. It's all good. Because when you're a photographer, or video creator, whatever it is, it's hard to just take a picture and just to pick up your camera, snap it, and then not think about it. At least for me, my brain just instantly goes into, okay, wait a minute, how can I make this look good? Like, I remember when we were doing the Christmas portraits that we do every year, or the family photo. My wife was saying, "Oh, I thought you were just gonna we're just gonna sit around the tree and you were gonna just take a quick picture." And I was like, "No." I ended up reorganizing our loft where our Christmas tree was, and moving the tree behind the couch, moving the couch forward, and I did a bunch of different combinations of lights. Because if I'm going to take a picture, and especially if I'm going to share it, I want it to look good. I want to be able to, I take pride in being able to produce good quality photo and video. So what happened was, it was Thursday during fight week, and it kind of last minute, I was informed that we needed some portraits. So if you ever watch like a boxing match on TV, like when they put up the tail of the tape, or graphics before the fighters come into the ring, they'll just put up 2 photos of fighters on each side, and their height and reach and all that kind of stuff, just tail of the tape data. But we had a number of fighters that were going to be on the broadcast, but who have maybe not been on TV before, and therefore didn't have portraits. So it came down the pipe pretty last minute that there were 9 fighters that were going to be fighting, for whom we needed to capture portraits. That was not, actually back in the day, I say back in the day, but I mean like, a couple years ago, we were actually doing more involved portrait photography for the company that I work for. So we would travel more often to some of these fights. We would bring with us a backdrop. We would bring with us soft boxes and flashes, 2 big heavy crates that we had to travel with alone. And it's not easy for sure, but we would be prepared, and we would have a room set aside where we could set up a backdrop, set up our lighting. We would have someone to coordinate bringing fighters in to stand there while we could get their portraits. And it was good. In an optimal portrait photography setting, what we would typically have would be one big key light, which is kind of, again, I don't have my GoPro, so I can't show it, but have a nice big softbox. A lot of the times when we do these portraits, we're taking photos of fighters, their full body, or at least, like shins and up. So you want a big key light that's going to give you plenty of coverage. So the key light that we typically use is a 60-inch softbox. It's a big softbox, but it, the light that it produced was quite nice and covered most of their body. And the positioning of that softbox would be about where this is positioned to me. So if I'm looking directly at the camera here, you can see that it kind of, the light spills a little bit over onto this side of my face, and then the rest is shadow, and then this side of my face is nice and lit up. And that's kind of like the Rembrandt type of lighting. A little bit of contrast, and when you're a fighter, having some nice, especially you're a fighter, you're cutting weight, and you've got all these muscles and the shadows that it creates over those muscles and everything. It's very a flattering look for the fighters. So we would have that about 45 degrees or so to the right and 45 degrees or so up. I know because I'm doing like a Nazi salute, but I swear I'm not. But basically, if you're standing here in this direction, shining down on you off to the side is typically a very flattering lighting position, depending on the look that you're going for. And then in addition to that, we would have 2 tall soft boxes, which I think were like 36 inches by 12 inches. And we would put those to the left and right of each fighter and a little bit behind them. And that was more or less just to give a little bit of rim lighting and give some separation from the background. And oftentimes, which was also the case for these portraits that I had to take last minute, the point is not to use the backdrop, but to cut the fighters out and make, and put them on transparent backgrounds so we could put these in these on TV graphics. So that made my job a little bit easier in the sense that I knew that these were all going to be cut out and used for on TV stuff. But the problem was all I had with me to take these portraits was this. And this is just my Sony a7 III and a speed light. I didn't have any softboxes. I didn't have a backdrop. I didn't have anything. This is all I had to work with. And, I was shooting these things for Fox, so I wanted to try to make them look as good as possible. But it was Friday. It was the weigh-in. And basically the plan was, okay, I have my list of fighters. Once they weigh in, we'll go up, we'll coordinate with them, we'll bring them over and get their portrait. And we just needed 3 quick poses. And I have a couple examples of those I'll show in a little bit here. So basically, when I realized that I was going to have to take these portraits, I had to start thinking, okay, how am I going to do this to where I can as closely replicate the look that I would typically get if I had my full setup, but with the limited resources I have. If you're a photographer, I'm sure you've been in this situation before where it's like, okay, unforeseen circumstances, you just got to use what you've got and go with it. So if you're in a situation like this, and maybe you don't even have a flash, maybe you've just got a camera, you got to start thinking of, okay, what kind of portraits am I taking? Are you going to just take headshots? Do you want to get a nice background in the back? Or are you going to be just cutting it out later and you just need to try to optimize your lighting of the face so that when you do the cutout, it'll look good? Are you trying to get something with a nice background and you want the lighting all to mesh together well? Are you trying to get soft lighting? Do you want harsh lighting for the look that you're going for? There's a whole bunch of questions you kind of have to ask yourself based on your situation. My particular situation was I needed to do what I could do to try to mimic the traditional portrait style that we would typically do with just a camera and a speed light. And what I came up with was the weigh-in was being held kind of in this lower level of this hotel we were at, and next to where the stage was for the weigh-in and the room just across from it, there was just kind of like a, I don't know, just this sort of basement-looking area, but it had a number of white walls. And I thought, okay, so white is good because we can use white to bounce some light, to basically bounce some light. So I was looking around and I found what would be here. Let's try to come here. So do I have a piece of paper here? We'll come back here real quick. This isn't going to work. But basically what it was. So imagine there we go. Imagine we are looking up from down, like we're looking down at the floor of this. That was my dog, by the way. We're looking down at the floor plan of this space that I'm in. So I found this one space where there was a wall, and it kind of this corner went in a right angle like that. So there was a wall here, and then there was a wall here. Both of these walls were white, and there was nobody in that area. So what I thought I would do instead of, because if you've ever tried using an on-camera flash or a speed light and you just aim the speed light directly at the subject, it just doesn't look good. You get these super harsh shadows. You get flat lighting because it's shooting directly at you, and then you get harsh shadows behind. So it's just not a very flattering look if you're trying to get some contrast and some nice shadows into your shots. So what I instead decided to do was, okay, I'm going to put in this corner area here, I'm going to put the fighter about right here, and then I'm going to turn the camera so that I'm shooting portrait mode versus shooting in landscape, and I'm going to point the speed light not directly at the subject, but rather I'm going to point it directly to my left so that it bounces off of this wall and then onto the fighter. So basically, I was taking and I turned on or pulled out the little diffusion thing and took a photo like this. Now, some of the light is going to spill from the end of the speed light to the fighter regardless. So there will be a chance of some harsh shadows, but what I was trying to do was to create a little bit of, add a little bit of light to one side, just like if you were using like a big reflector. I was using the wall to the fighter's right side to bounce some extra light onto their right side and less onto their left, which would sort of give the illusion that there was a softbox to their side, to their right side, kind of like we would normally shoot it. So we shot 3 poses of these 9 fighters, and I'll pull up some examples here of how this turned out. All right, so this was what we came up with. So you can kind of tell, I mean, you can definitely see there's a pretty harsh shadow behind them, and you can tell that based on where this shadow is located, that the speed light was going to be off to their right side, my left a little bit, shooting in this direction. You can also see that yes, there are some harsh shadows underneath, say, the neck here and by the nose. And if I had the option, I would have had the speed light more up here versus more in this area here. But I think you can tell that bouncing it off the wall, again, the wall was on the fighter's right side. So you can tell that on this side of the fighter's body, there is more is illuminated, and then when you get over here, you start to see kind of the shadow and some of that, some of the harsh, or the it's more of a soft shadow versus you're in this case you're kind of blending harsh and soft lighting all in one. But again, these are the circumstances I had to work with. But I feel like it did a pretty good job based on the circumstances, getting some of that light more on the fighter's right side, and then kind of letting it fall off nice and softly onto their left side. And that's what we did. So it's kind of a fight pose and arms crossed. And those are the 3 poses. And these, again, because I'm not worried about the background in this case, this shadow in the back does not concern me, because they were going to go through and cut this guy, cut him out of the background anyway. So I'm not worried about the harsh shadow. If they were planning to use this backdrop, I probably would have tried to find, I would have had the fighter move out more towards me, so that hopefully the shadow, by the time it hit the backdrop, it was maybe a little bit more diffused. It's hard to know, they're actually, I might not even have the opportunity to do this, because the wall to their right was only maybe like 6 feet long. So I didn't have a ton of room to work with. But, again, I was pleasantly surprised with how it turned out given the circumstances. There was also some windows with some natural lighting coming in. If, you were in my situation and, you didn't have a speed light, let's say, for example. And by the way, I think what I did in those photos would have worked even if you had like an on-camera flash, maybe not quite as well, but it would still work with an on-camera flash. I think the Sony A7 III doesn't even have an on-camera flash. Some of these higher-end mirrorless and DSLRs don't. But some of them do, and you could probably get away with it if you had to. But I don't even remember what I was saying before this, but basically, yeah, there were some windows with some natural light. That would be another option. If you didn't have a speed light, you'd have to look for some kind of light source. Look around. What kind of ceiling lights do you have? Do you have some, are the ceiling lights harsh? Are there a bunch of them? Are they creating a bunch of different shadows? Or is there maybe one nice big overhead light source that you could position your subject under to where the lighting just, looks at least somewhat decent? Is there some natural lighting coming in through a window and you could place your subject next to that in a manner at which, the light hitting them would hit them in a flattering way? It's a lot of decisions to be made, but I thought it worked out pretty good. So yeah, if you're unprepared, don't fret, because there's always a workaround in some way, shape, or form. And I think too, as photographers, we are our own benchmark of quality. And we can look at our work or even someone else's work and be like, yeah, I don't like that, or I would have done that differently. That's not my thing. But I think most of the time we get in our heads about that. And I think the people that that receive our work or see our work because more than the people for whom you are taking the photos. Does that make sense? And you're going to judge your work more harshly. But people who, if you do the best that you can within the conditions that you have, people are going to appreciate the work that you're able to produce regardless, I think. Unless you're taking photos for another photographer who's really, really picky. But at the end of the day, like I said, the photos were sent over to Fox. Fox used them on the TV for the fighters, and it worked out, and it looked better than expected given the circumstances. And I think I'm okay with that. And that's it. There you go. I hope that helps some of you. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this one done, and I'm going to read a script because I wrote an outro. So I'm going to read this looking at this monitor up here, but hopefully it's going to look like I'm looking at you at the same time. And with that, I'm going to call this one done. But if you're still with me, and if I brought you some value, it would be really cool if you would hit that like and subscribe button. Is it on? Is it where? I think it's working. And follow me on social media wherever you happen to be watching or listening. And until next time, keep on creating, making, and doing. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.